Hi, Thais here from ThaisSky.com. Let's talk about the first step that we can take in addressing our worthiness wound. Now, I don't want to oversimplify the process of addressing and healing a worthiness wound. It's a very individualized experience where every person has a different way of looking and addressing and healing their stuff. And I am finding that this is a crucial first step in creating the space necessary to address our worthiness wound. Okay, so before I dive into my particular story and how I got to this tool, I want you to first take a moment and write down all of the thoughts that genuinely come up for you when you are feeling triggered and you're feeling that sense of inadequacy that you know is your worthiness wound. Okay? I want you to write down your thoughts because those thoughts are going to be arrows for you. They're going to be like an alarm system going off in your head, letting you know that your worthiness wound has been triggered. Oftentimes, we don't even know that we're triggered. Something happens and then we immediately start to feel a sense of shame and guilt. We start to feel our unworthiness being activated, but there's not like an overt triggering, right? It's just a sensation of feeling off. So if we can start to notice the thoughts that come up around being triggered, then we know, oh, I'm being triggered right now. Okay, so the other day I was walking my dog Chewy and something had set me off. Something online had made me feel completely inadequate, and I was thinking the thoughts of I am so unworthy, like how dare I think that I can go and do these things. As I was walking Chewy and those thoughts were going off in my head, I was immediately able to recognize that this was the thoughts that genuinely come when my worthiness wound is being activated. When I realized this, when I could put those two pieces together, instead of believing in my unworthiness, I was able to separate who I truly am from my sense of unworthiness by, instead of saying I am unworthy, I was able to recognize, oh, my worthiness wound is being triggered right now. Do you see that difference? When we can acknowledge that our worthiness wound is being triggered rather than acknowledge that we are inherently unworthy, we can start to then find a sense of tenderness and healing of this wound. It's like we can address the problem now because it's not so identified as who we are. When we're feeling broken, when we're feeling inadequate, it's impossible to create the space necessary to heal and address what's going on. So when we can notice that, oh, this is something separate, this is a culmination of collective voices and experiences, this is not truly who I am, we can start to heal the wound. For those of you that aren't too familiar with the worthiness wound, one of the key principles of understanding the wound is that we were born whole. We were not born unworthy. Unworthiness came from collective culture. Unworthiness came from personal experiences of unlovability. The worthiness wound came from many, many different facets and areas of our lives that told us that we are unworthy, but we were not born this way. So now the goal or the journey is to come back to a sense of wholeness. When we can remember, when in those moments that we are feeling triggered, that this is just our wound and it is not who we are, we can create the space to then address the wound. And I'm finding this to be absolutely a critical first step, because when we can separate ourselves from this wound, it's not so much caught up in our identity of who we are. When we get caught up in the identity of who we are, it's very hard to change. It's very hard to have perspective. It's very hard to allow something different to come in. During that walk, when I was able to say, oh, this is my worthiness wound that's being triggered, I was able to be in a tender space. I was able to love it up. I was able to acknowledge that this is just a natural manifestation of all the shit that's happened in my life. It is not who I am. That space is everything. So take a look at the thoughts that come up when you're feeling unworthy. Write those thoughts down. And next time that they come up, really acknowledge that this is just a manifestation of the wound. Can you separate yourself from the wound? Can you, instead of saying, I am unworthy, can you say, this is just my worthiness wound being activated? The more we can create space, the more we can create healing. I hope this serves you. Lots of love. Namaste.